On this evening's early edition at 6, the president and ruling party are seeking to revise the public servant pension plan in hopes to get the changes passed by the end of the year. But they'll have to clear the changes with opposition lawmakers and public servants themselves who disagree with the plan. The nation's private and public debt continues to snowball, and rising debt levels are raising concerns about the effect on domestic consumption. The U.S. CDC issues new guidelines on dealing with travelers from Ebola-stricken regions, focusing on a less aggressive quarantine. Meanwhile, Australia slaps a blanket visa ban on all Ebola-affected countries. We have these and more coming up next. It's Tuesday, October 28th here in Seoul. Welcome to Early Edition at 6, live from Seoul. I'm Daniel Choy.
And I'm Hwang Ji-hye. Thanks for joining us.
We begin with some breaking news. Another body of a Sewol-ho ferry victim has been found.
This after the victims' families decided on Sunday to continue the underwater search operation inside the sunken ferry for the remaining 10 who are unaccounted for. The body of the victim is presumed to that of a young girl and was found in a restroom on board the vessel.
That brings the number of missing bodies to 9. It's been more than 100 days since the last body was found. The tragic ferry accident in April left over 300 people, mostly students, dead or missing.
And now over to North Korea. South Korea's spy agency says the regime's young leader had a cyst removed from his right ankle sometime between September to October.
And that's when he disappeared from the public eye for 40 days. While the younger leader is now out and about, no clear explanation has been given for his whereabouts during that period.
During a closed-door inspection at the National Assembly on Tuesday, officials from the National Intelligence Service told lawmakers that a foreign medical team traveled to North Korea between September and October to treat Kim. The agency added that Kim is now recovering from the surgery, although the possibility of a recurrence remains.
Shifting our focus back to South, President Park met with former First Lady Lee Hee-ho on Tuesday and agreed to look into granting the former First Lady permission to visit North Korea sometime in the future.
And their meeting, which follows the 5th anniversary of former President Kim Dae-jung's passing in August, the former First Lady expressed a wish to visit the North to deliver handmade wool hats and mufflers to North Korean children.
Praising E's devotion, President Park talked about Seoul's project to offer food and medicine to mothers and newborns in the impoverished North. She also referred to our government's efforts to prepare for the reunification of the two Koreas, including the launch of a preparatory committee.
Now, the heated national debate over reforming the pension program for public servants continues.
And while President Park Geun-hye is pushing for passage of the revisions by the end of this year, the main opposition party and government workers say the plan represents a change for the worse.
And our Ji Myung-gil reports.
The ruling Saenuri Party is moving to reduce the deficit in the pension program for government employees by launching a new pension system for public servants starting in 2016. The reform plan centers on increasing the age that payments can be received from 60 to 65 by the year 2031. President Park Geun-hye on Tuesday called for the reform bill to be passed by the end of the year, adding that a delay will place a greater burden on future generations. Pension reform was a key part of the president's 3-year economic innovation plan announced in February.
개혁이 늦어지면 늦어질수록 부담이 증가하고 현행 시스템을 유지하는 것이 더 어려워지는 것이 현실입니다.
According to the ruling party's calculations, the plan will save the government $95 billion in the first 12 years after its implementation starting in 2016.
We can only ask the public for understanding. At our current rate, the government will be spending $1.9 trillion in 2080 to meet the shortfall from the civil servants' pension scheme.
The main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy is taking a more cautious approach to the proposal, with members voicing their reservations.
The proposed pension reforms by the ruling Saenuri Party and the government represent a change for the worse. Instead of narrowing the payment gap between better paid and poorly paid officials, retirees from the public sector will be paid less.
The Government Employees Union declared it is launching a national campaign to resist the reforms, with a demonstration slated for November 1st. Kim Young-gil, Arirang News.
And on the nation's economic front, public and private sector debt is piling up within the domestic economy. The total amount has gotten so high that it now actually threatens to take a bite out of consumption and investment. Kim Ji-yeon tells more.
Korean households, business entities, and the nation are deep in debt to the point where it's starting to have an effect on consumption and investment. After analyzing data compiled by the Finance Ministry, the Bank of Korea, and the Korea Institute for Industrial Economics and Trade, ruling Saenuri Party lawmaker Lee Hyung-gu says individual debt reached nearly $1.2 trillion last year. That's more than 85% of the country's nominal GDP and surpasses the World Economic Forum's threshold of 75%. Liability by Korean companies amounted to more than $1.7 trillion last year, exceeding Korea's nominal GDP by nearly 27%. Public debt, including the liability of public agencies, civil servants, and military pensions, comes to $1.6 trillion, which surpasses nominal GDP by nearly 15%. The country's high level of debt is raising concerns that it will affect domestic consumption. Korea's consumer sentiment dropped in October to levels seen in May following April's Sewol-ho ferry disaster. An official from the Bank of Korea attributes the decline to the pessimistic outlooks for the Korean economy, which include a lowering of the country's growth projections, falling share prices, and economic risks stemming from the Eurozone. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
Today is so-called Savings Day in Korea, but the amount of money being saved here by households is among the lowest in the OECD. The Bank of Korea says the country's household savings rate stood at 3.4% as of 2011, falling short of the OECD average of 5.3%. The rate last year was 4.5%, up more than 1 percentage point from the previous year. Although it did rise in 2013, the rate has been sliding since 2001, only surpassing the 5% mark in 2 years, that is in 2004 and 2005.
And tech news, a new curved smartphone hit the shelves in Seoul today. Samsung Electronics, the world's top smartphone maker, released a Galaxy Note Edge earlier in the day through mobile's provider SK Telecom. Samsung says the phone is a cross between a smartphone and a tablet PC with a 5.6-inch curved display. It's a high-end smartphone with a Quad HD resolution and a 16-megapixel camera. The price? About $1,000 here in Korea. The Galaxy Note Edge is set to be released in the US by the end of November. A dark shadow looms over Samsung Electronics, though. Many other major companies here as well need to be on the lookout. A new report shows that China is fast catching up to Korea in key industries, including global communication devices and automobiles. Or Park Ji-won tells us more.
Will Korea maintain its global competitiveness in its strongest industries down the road? The country currently holds the top position in the global shipbuilding, communication device, and display sectors. Automobiles and semiconductors are also key for Korea. But a new study predicts that China will overtake most of these industries in just 4 years. The Korea Institute for Industrial Economics and Trade says that although Korea currently faces the toughest competition from Japan, the US, and European countries, China will be Korea's biggest competitor in 9 key industries by 2018. After that, only Korea's automobile sector, which is now the world's 5th largest, will maintain its global competitiveness. Korea's general machinery and semiconductor sectors will also see fierce competition from China in the coming 4 years. The forecast is also gloomy for Korea's shipbuilding, communication device, and display sectors, which are currently #1 in the world. The institute adds China will be especially strong in IT sectors like smartphones and LCDs, which are Korea's main exports at present. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
Well, on the other hand, the outlook for Korean construction companies looks quite bright. We're seeing a steady rise in construction projects overseas, especially in Malaysia. But again, China remains as a big threat. Kwon So-ah reports.
This 58-floor, 274-meter-high skyscraper will be Malaysia's third highest building upon completion next year. IB Tower is situated in the capital Kuala Lumpur, led by Daewoo Engineering and Construction.
Different from other buildings, we used a cutting-edge method of exposing all the columns on the outside of the building. We expect this to become a new landmark.
In Malaysia, the Korean wave trend appears to have extended into the construction field too, as major Korean construction companies have participated in or been the sole builders of some of the highest skyscrapers in the country. In fact, Korea's construction volume accounts for around 20% of Malaysia's construction market. And overseas construction projects in general have been on a steady rise, with this year's volume of orders estimated to hit $70 billion.
I know very well Korean company make high-rise building in Malaysia and very impressed to bring the new technology, new quality and new design in Malaysia. I'm very impressed.
According to Daewoo Construction, no matter how difficult a project is, Korea's companies have a reputation of meeting their deadlines. But that alone may not be enough to emerge as the leader in the Malaysian market, as China is rising as a competitor.
Beijing is supporting Chinese construction firms greatly, while Korean companies have to survive independently to seize the market.
Industry watchers say Korea needs to focus on price competitiveness and technical skills to be successful in the long term. Kwon So-ah, Arirang News.
Early adapters, we have plenty of them in the medical sector here in Korea as well. Korea's healthcare industry is set to demonstrate how Google Glass fits into its medical services. Our Kim Min-ji takes us to a local hospital utilizing this handy gadget.
This patient has just been hit by a car and is bleeding severely from his head. An ambulance worker puts on a smart, wearable device and starts recording what he sees. And this can be seen from the hospital emergency room.
혈압이 낮으면 수액을 먼저 다는 게 어떨까 싶은데. 예, 혈관 확보하겠습니다. 허락해 주십시오. 네, 알겠습니다. 허가하겠습니다. IV 수액을 지금 투여하십시오. 예, 알겠습니다.
In the 15 minutes it takes to get to the hospital, the paramedic follows the directions of the doctor while hospital staff prepare the necessary medical equipment for the patient. It's a scene that could be from a movie, but is part of a smart emergency medical service demonstration by Hwang Ji-hye Hospital in Goyang, the first of its kind in Korea. Using state-of-the-art technology, in this case the Google Glass, which enables real-time video communication, the service aims to provide the best possible response in the shortest amount of time for patients that could be in critical condition.
Google Glass allows doctors to see the exact condition of the patient and therefore allows for clearer and more effective treatments. The paramedic is also less burdened as they have both hands free to use when attending to the patient.
In this situation, Google Glass enables doctors to not only check medical records of patients, but also lets them view X-rays and CT and MRI scans just by scanning a QR code that's loaded with the patient's details. Officials at Hwang Ji-hye Hospital hope to later adopt the technology in all areas of the hospital, from wards and outpatient clinics to operating rooms. However, there are some obstacles they will have to clear beforehand. Not only will the system be costly to adopt, Google Glass first needs to be authorized for medical use in Korea. Security issues are another concern, as the device can currently only be connected by Wi-Fi, and not all of the data exchanged may be encrypted. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
In an effort to keep the deadly Ebola virus out of the United States, the military has started isolating its soldiers returning from West Africa. U.S. officials said troops will be placed under a 21-day monitoring period to ensure the nation is safe from the potential spread of the virus. The decision comes after the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention issued a new set of guidelines for containing the spread of Ebola within the country. Individuals with a high risk of Ebola in the U.S. are now being advised to stay at home instead of the mandatory quarantines imposed by some states. Following news of people contracting Ebola outside of West Africa, Australia became the first advanced nation to slap a ban on visas from Ebola-affected countries in an effort to contain the spread of the disease. A new video has been released by the Islamic State group featuring British hostage John Kentley, and unlike his previous appearance, he takes a very different role. The man identifying himself as the British journalist taken hostage nearly 2 years ago sheds his orange jumpsuit and portrays himself as a foreign correspondent on a story. Kentley says he's in the border city of Kobani, and unlike Western media accounts, he says the fight for the embattled city was coming to an end with the terror group already conquering most of it. The clip was distributed online via various social media platforms. And over at the venue of the 3-week International Telecommunication Union Conference in the southern port city of Busan, 7 people were honored with an award that aims to elevate women in the ICT industry. Our Shin Se-min tells us more about the significance of the event.
The ICT sector has not just made the world a smarter place, it has been a primary driver of economic growth both internationally and here at home. The Bank of Korea says the ICT industry contributes nearly 30 to 40% of the nation's total GDP growth, and the government has vowed to invest some $4.6 billion into the IT sector to fuel growth. But many believe this is just a tip of the iceberg. Amabala Johnson, Nigeria's Minister of Communication Technology, who has piloted a dozen Nigerian schools in order to foster ICT-related education for girls, says the ICT sector can grow even more once the gender gap narrows.
In about 2015-2016, 90% of available jobs will need some level of ICT skills. And if we're going to get more women employed, empowered, having income, having education, then we must skill them up on ICT. So it's a development issue. It's not just a nice-to-have thing. If women are going to get jobs, they must have ICT skills, and that's what we're trying to do.
However, many women are facing obstacles to acquiring ICT skills, largely due to the misconception that ICT isn't a field for women.
Women can do just as good a job as men can. There is no inequality in terms of ability. It's the perception. And I think if that perception persists, then less women will pursue the career. And that's what will hinder women entering this field.
Experts say it is imperative to provide young women with more role models, especially here in Korea, where the proportions of women in the ICT sector has been on a steady decline since 2009 to a low of 16% last year. Shin Se-min, Arirang News, Busan.
Speaking of good women role models, we shift our focus to President Park Geun-hye, a forum that revolves around one of her signature initiatives kicked off this Tuesday here in Seoul. The Northeast Asia Peace and Cooperation Forum will cover a range of issues from nuclear safety and energy security to conservation efforts and disaster preparedness. Officials from all members of the 6-party talks aimed at denuclearizing North Korea are attending the 3-day meeting, all but the North, even after receiving invitations to participate. Pyongyang has been critical of the forum, calling it a plot against the regime. Over in North Korea, a Japanese specialist says Pyongyang is now focusing more on its economic development and less on the political and ideological pursuits of the past. Our Son Jung-in has this report.
North Korea seems very dedicated to developing its economy and infrastructure, and although it's still in the early stages, it appears confident in its achievements. That's according to Junya Nishino, an associate professor at Keio University in Japan, who recently visited North Korea with 10 other Japanese scholars. Nishino, a specialist on Korea and Korea-Japan relations, visited Pyongyang and the port city of Wonsan in mid-October and met with Sewol-ho, North Korea's ambassador, for negotiations on normalizing diplomatic relations with Japan. Speaking to Yonhap News Agency on Monday, Nishino quoted Song as saying that Pyongyang is doing well despite Japan's 10-year-long sanctions. He said the U.S.'s strict policy against the North is causing it some hardship, but that it is managing the situation well. The professor also pointed out something he noticed during the talks. He said that North Korean officials are focused more on the economy and improving the people's livelihoods than politics and ideology as in the past. He added that amid somewhat strained relations with China, the North may pursue ways to promote global diversification with other countries like Japan, Russia, and Europe. 손정인, Arirang News.
On to some lighter news. A special exhibition displaying the artistic works of Nobel Prize winners is underway here in Korea. It aims to promote science and creativity, but also to show the lighter side of some of the world's most serious thinkers. Our Paul Yi reports.
A football can endure the powerful strike of a kicker because of its strong and solid structure. Professor Harold Kroto of Florida State University won the Nobel Prize for Chemistry in 1996 for the discovery of fullerene, a carbon molecule that resembles the shape of a football. This is a quasi-crystal created by melting aluminum and manganese together and cooling it rapidly. It is a hard metal that does not conduct electricity and is used to make golf clubs or razor blades. Dan Sheckman, who won the 2011 Nobel Prize in Chemistry for this discovery, drew a picture representing the crystal's unique pattern structure.
Mother Nature has many secrets, and she's hiding them like Easter eggs. And we scientists look for the Easter eggs. And whenever we find something, we bring it, and Mother Nature is smiling at us.
These Nobel laureates are among 50 prize winners who have been asked to draw a picture of their ideas as part of the Sketch of Science exhibition, which began in 2012.
Well, we do hope that bringing out that science could be fun, that science is not only hard labor in the laboratory, but it could also be a playful way of describing an idea.
The art pieces are being displayed at the Gwacho National Science Museum through late November to give exhibit goers a peek into the humor and creativity of those Nobel Prize-winning minds. Paul Yi, Arirang News.
It's like we're experiencing two different seasons in one day these days. Chilly mornings and adequate sunshine throughout the day.
Yes, and let's now turn to our Michelle Park at the Weather Center for the latest. Michelle?
Good evening, guys. It was a nice sunny day here in Korea with temperatures going up to 18 degrees here in Seoul today. The temperatures are expected to drop as we move into the evening hours, and a drop about 10 degrees is expected overnight, putting the mercury below the teens into the morning. Now, besides the usual cold mornings and warm afternoons, we can expect cloudy skies nationwide, but with a good amount of sunshine, of course. Now, however, we're expecting even more clouds to move in for this week, and from Friday to Saturday, we have pouring rain across the nation, especially the southern regions. And to our readings for tomorrow, so we'll start off the Wednesday morning at 5 degrees before reaching up to 20 in the afternoon. Meanwhile, the southern cities such as Daegu and Busan will reach up to 21 and 22 degrees. Now to other regions, Jeju Island peaks to 20 while Dokdo drops to 17, while Mount Gyeonggang hits tad higher at 19 degrees. Well, that's all for now. I'm Michelle Park, and here's a look at the weather conditions around the world.
Thanks, Michelle. That's all we have for you at this hour. I'm Hwang Ji-hye. Have a wonderful day.
Well, thanks for staying with us. This is Daniel Choy. Wherever you're tuning in from, a wonderful day or a good night. We'll be back with more same time tomorrow.